Okay.
Oh, yay. Okay. Right, Tonia.
All right. So can you still hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So let's get out some clay first. And I'm going to show you how to sort of 3 different ways to make impressions, which you can probably guess what those are. One are the letter stamps. And then I'm also going to use rubber stamp. And then I'm using this piece of, this is rosemary, but to me it looks like evergreen, so it kind of reminds me of like a Christmassy evergreen kind of look, but you could use any types of leaves or a feather or other natural elements too. So I'm going to show you that too. Oh, that smells so good just from handling it. Some clay. See,
Tonia, is that the white clay?
this is the white clay.
Okay. That's the only one I don't have. Oh, well. I can get it some other day.
Because it's light, so it shows the color easier. But I've painted all 3 colors, and you get some kind of neat effects with all of it. So close that back up. Okay, I probably got plenty here. So I'm just gonna break off a little bit to start. That's even probably too much. So I've got just a little smaller than a golf ball size here. This clay is nice and moist. And I like it to be about maybe just a little more than 1/8 of an inch, but 1/8 of an inch is good too. I don't measure it. Okay, so let's see. Let's do one of the letter ones first. So I've got these little letter stamps, and these are actually made for cookies. So if you're searching for them in a store or online, they're with the baking materials, not the stamping materials. And they're just so cool. And then, there's this little handle part that, so you don't have to mount it on anything else. And then, as I showed you before, this is a different kind of set where the letters slide in, kind of like a printing plate. And this font is a little bit smaller. So if you've got longer words, the smaller letters are good. Okay, so let's see if I go this way, it will be long enough. These letters are so deep that goes down into the clay pretty far. So what I like to do is create kind of a tag shape, and I just cut this out by hand. So I use my clay blade. And you can trim, as close or as far from the letters as you like. And then let's see, before I cut those ends off, I'm going to punch a hole at the top with my stir straw. And then I'm just cutting at a 45-degree angle to create a little tag shape. I might just straighten that up a little bit. And that's pretty much all there is to that. And then I take, I've got a little dish of water here, and I take my finger and I just smooth out the area at the bottom where it gets kind of sharp. You can do this when it's dry too, which I'm going to show you how to sand it, but the more you can get done when it's wet, the better. So then I would just set that aside to dry. And then let's do something with that other letter set. These little crumbs out of the way. Now this time I'm going to stamp a word, but I'm going to use a a cookie cutter to cut the shape out. Probably pretty good. And I'm going to stamp the word first so that I don't have to try and position it exactly in the shape where I want it. So I'm just kind of going in the middle here, like that. And then I've got this little cute heart cutter. I'm going to cut around it. And then I take my my straw and I cut the hole out while this is still in here so that it doesn't push the clay out. And I could do it in the center, but I'm going to do it kind of on one of the sides of the heart, like that. Cute. And then same thing, I'm just going to smooth it out a little bit. And that's working with the letter stamps. You can get pretty creative with your shapes.
I really like the little letters. Those are sweet.
Yeah, me too. And they look really good painted too, or just even left like this, you know, even if we just let them dry and didn't do anything else to them, I think they're still really cute. Okay, so let's do the rubber stamp. Looks pretty nice. And this, these little snowflakes came in a large sheet. It was kind of supposed to be like a snowflake background. And I just took my scissors and cut out individual snowflakes that I liked. And I found 4 that I liked so that I could make that little set that I showed you. So I've got 4 different designs, but I'm just going to be demoing one. And that is this one.
Those are so cute.
I know, I think so too. And I've got the clear mount, so it's easy to see where I'm stamping. I'm just kind of going to go in the middle here. I think I want it that way. Like that. Okay, now I'm going to punch my hole, and then I'm going to cut around it just like I did with the word with my clay blade. So yeah, just right here. And clean that off a little bit. Okay, crumb there. And I'm just eyeballing it. I'm kind of using the lines on my cutting mat to get it pretty square, but it's especially helpful if you want to make a set and make them all the same size. You can just go by the cutting mat. Let's do this about here. And then I could leave it like that, which I'll do for the element stamp, but I'm still going to make a little tag shape out of this one. Okay. And then, yeah, the rosemary. Man, I got a lot of extra clay here. So what I found works best with something as kind of, I don't know, big as this, it's got a lot of texture all the way around it, it's not too flat, is I just sort of press it down and then I very lightly kind of press into it with the roller. Go over it that way. And that really helps define the shape a little bit better than if I just try and push it in with my fingers. It makes it more even pressure.
That's a great idea. I wouldn't have thought to do that.
Yeah, it took me a few tries to realize that. I think it wasn't intuitive to me to use the roller. It seems like it would damage it or something, but it actually works pretty well. And let's see, this has ended up, I printed more of this than I have with some of the others, so I'll probably cut part of it off. I'll just put the hole there. Oops, didn't come out. There we go. And this time I'm just going to leave it square. I'm not going to cut off the corners.
Tonia, what kind of blade are you using to cut those straight edges?
To my knowledge, it's just called a clay blade. It's just got a sharp blade on one side, which isn't even that sharp anymore. I've been using it for so long, but it's still plenty sharp for cutting the clay.
Yeah.
It actually came in the set with this little roller that I had. So needless to say, with this natural element stuff, each one is definitely one of a kind. I'd be hard pressed, no pun intended, to get a bunch the same, get them to match. Kind of the beauty of it too, though, I guess. Yeah, so that's actually making them. And then, as you both know, because you've done all this clay stuff a lot, it takes several hours or overnight for this stuff to dry. And then once it is, just gonna put this back in the package. Once it is dry, then there's several things you can do to it. So I've done these guys ahead of time, just like the ones that we did. Did I get all of them? Oh, I guess that was it. Seems like I'm missing. Oh, the piece one here. Yeah, okay. So these are just exactly like the ones I just stamped, but they're dry because I did them yesterday. And what I like to do is sand them. You don't have to do this, but I find that it really just kind of makes them look a little bit more finished overall, but it's definitely optional. You would want to sand it at the back if you didn't smooth it enough with the water. You might want to do that anyway, but I usually sand the top a little bit and wear a dust mask if you do this because the particles are pretty fine. But if you had any imperfections that you didn't want, I think a certain amount kind of adds to the look of it. But if there was something you didn't want, you can kind of help sand it out. If this top edge was sharp too, I could soften that. Sometimes there's little rough parts with this rosemary stuff, so I could soften that too. So it is just an extra step, but I think it's really worth it for the finished tags or for anything with clay. So we would do that. And then what we're going to want to do is apply a coat of clear varnish to these before we actually paint them.
Huh.
So I've got, here it is. And I'm going to switch this to a piece of parchment paper. I usually like to do the varnishing and the painting on parchment paper. So I've got a little cup, and I usually do the varnishing with a foam brush. And I reuse this brush a lot before I actually need to dispose of it. If you rinse it out when you're done, and you can actually end up reusing it several times. It does keep hardening up each time from the varnish, but they're certainly not just disposable the first time you use them unless that's what you want. Something else I was going to say about that. Oh yeah, usually when I'm done with it, just to keep as much out of the drain out of the water as possible, I usually take a wet paper towel and I blot out the brush that way first, and that removes a lot of the excess varnish, and then I just rinse out the minimal amount that's left. So I squeeze that out and got my dry clay. Oh, almost forgot. I didn't used to do this, but I wear gloves when I do this now because the varnish I have a hard time getting all of it off my hands. Acrylic paint comes off a lot easier than this acrylic varnish does, so it kind of drives me crazy having it on there all day. So I just wear gloves and then I don't have to worry about it. So we're just brushing over it, and we want to make sure to get that varnish gets down in the impressions there, or otherwise it collects a lot of paint, which is fine, but it doesn't allow you as much flexibility with wiping it off, which you'll see in a second. And the little holes get plugged up. I just blow a strong bit of air through them, and that seems to help. Were you going to say something?
I'm sorry, yeah. What was the varnish that you're using? Water-based varnish?
It is, I think it's water-based. It's
there you go.
It's Liquitex.
Great. It's funny
I like the high, they have just, they have a gloss varnish, but this is called high gloss varnish. They're both by Liquitex.
Yeah.
And I like the high gloss one because it dries a little harder.
That's a good tip.
And when I put these on the parchment paper, even though they're wet on the back, they don't stick as much as they would to some other things. I usually will go back and kind of nudge them, after a minute or two. And then when they dry all the way, I don't have much problem with them sticking. That way I don't have to just paint the front, and leave it and come back. And I'm too impatient for that.
Do you recommend if you have, like, my clay kind of stuck to my surface, and it kind of messed up the back a little. What kind of surface should I be rolling out the clay on?
I work on either a cutting mat, like that self-healing mat, or parchment paper, or wood.
Okay.
What were you working on?
The craft mat,
Yeah, usually I don't have too much trouble, but if the clay is really wet, sometimes it'll stick, or if I'm extra vigorous in my rolling.
I think I pushed. Yeah, I rolled too hard. I'm just excited.
So now I'm just gonna, like I said, blot a lot of this out. I will pour this excess back in the bottle also. And
I'll have to remember that gloss varnish. That's pretty cool. That it dries hard. I like that.
yeah, without it being quite so, I don't know, toxic or whatever is, some of the polymer resin, types of varnish. Yeah, it's kind of in between the regular varnish and those heavier duty varnishes. So, of course, I do have some of these varnished already. The varnish doesn't take too long to dry. It's like acrylic paint. A good, sometimes 10 minutes, but certainly an hour is plenty for those to dry. Get another paper towel. So now I'm going to show you how to paint. And as far as painting goes, I'm going to just kind of mention that there's sort of, I don't know, I think two directions that I usually take. And one is to just do one coat of paint. And these guys here just have one coat of, I think this is raw umber. And they're very pretty, you know, one color is fine, especially on the white clay. Just gives them a little antique look. But it's also fun to do two colors, like I've done with the other snowflakes, where I did that exact same raw umber first, and then varnished on top of it, and then did a second color, and then varnished again. So it just depends on how much time you want to spend with them, and the look, the finished look that you want. They're both pretty, you know. It just depends on the look. Oh, I wanted to show these too. So these were just one color too. Yeah, and they're, you know, it's very natural, and that's pretty also.
Now the colors are darker on the inside and they're light on the outside.
Because it collects so much down in there in the recess, and most of it is wiped off on the outside, which I'm going to show you.
Okay.
So this set here, these are varnished, dried, and have one coat of varnish on them. I don't really need that other guy. Let's stick with these. And let's see, I need done with the varnish, I need my paint. And acrylic paint is what I'm using. And a small brush. This flat brush works well. You want to use something that you're sure you can get work paint down into the recesses with. That's kind of important. And on these letter stamps, these ones for the cookies, I noticed they are really deep. So if you don't really work the paint down in there, it's not in there. You know, you'll just end up, it sticks almost near the top and it just wipes off. A brush that's not as fine isn't as big a deal for these rubber stamp impressions and the natural elements. You can work that in with almost any brush, but with these letter stamps, you want to make sure you've got something fine enough to get down in there. So I have a little cup of water. And then I wanted to show you just kind of the two main base coats that I like to use. If I'm just going to stick with one color, they're both pretty neutral. One is raw umber and the other is Payne's gray. And I'll show you some finished ones here. Here's the difference. This is the Payne's gray and this is the raw umber. And I'm probably just going to demo the raw umber here, but I wanted you to see what the Payne's gray looks like too, because one's warm and one's cool. They're both pretty neutral, but they have a different look.
I love that. I haven't bought Payne's gray and raw umber in a long time, but I think it's a good time to do it.
It's one of my favorite colors. I don't know why. It's so pretty in all its forms, like kind of a periwinkle, you know, when it's really light, and then almost black if it's really heavy.
Yeah.
I like Payne's gray. It's just,
It's beautiful, isn't it? Yeah, I love it too. Okay.
More stuff to buy.
Oh, goody. Right. I'm impressed that this like student grade Grumbacher paint that I've had since college is still okay in the tube.
That's amazing.
It's almost gone. Yeah, it is amazing. It's not in its perfect consistency, but it works. So what we're going to do is we're not going to use much water. Just, you know, dip your brush in the water, but you don't want a lot of water in with your paint. So I'll start with this letter one. And I'm going to start with the letters. And I'm even sort of painting the sides, the walls of the sides of the impression inside there. Getting in as much paint as I can, just to give me a nice finished word when the rest of it's rubbed off. And if I use much water, then it's going to be easier to rub off on the outside, but it's also going to take too much with it on the letters on the inside. So I'm just brushing over the whole thing. not paying attention to my strokes because it's not really going to matter when I wipe it off. And then I've got a paper towel. And I'm wiping most of it off. Now this is kind of a little dance that I do back and forth with adding paint and taking it off until I have the look that I want. And if the paint seems like it's drying too quick and it doesn't come off, because we have the varnish there already, if I dip my paper towel in the water, I can usually get more of it off. And if I haven't coated the piece completely with varnish, like if I've missed some of it, which I'm suspecting I might have had it pretty thin right here, it will just absorb right into the clay and it will not come off. So that's the purpose of the varnishing it ahead of time. Okay, so I got it really wet there. That's actually not bad, but if I wasn't going to apply, well, whether I was going to apply another color over it or not, I might want just a little bit more. So I might brush it on and then I might just kind of work it off with my fingers until I get it the way that I want. So that's pretty good. Okay, so let's do the same thing for the other two. And I don't actually always wear gloves when I paint because I do like using my hands to work the paint off, and cleanup doesn't seem to be as hard with that. Oops. And sometimes, see how I kind of wiped the paint out of the impression there? That's what I'm talking about with those letters. That happens all the time, and I have to go back and add some more and then rub it off again a little bit lighter. That's a little better. My guess is that that part of the impression wasn't as deep. I probably didn't have exactly even pressure on the stamp, but I think that's pretty good. Okay, and then this guy. I just love these, the impression this rosemary makes.
And it smells good while you're doing it, right?
Mm.
I need to try some other plants. I just haven't done it yet.
It's hard to find a variety of plants here in Arizona.
Yeah. I've got some thyme out in my little herb box. I think that would probably work well too, since, you know, it's kind of stiff.
Yeah.
It would have, you know, cute little leaves. So that looks really good. And I do think these look pretty without another coat on them, but I'm gonna give that a try this time today just to see if I like it any better. So then what I would do before putting another coat on these, and this paint is pretty much dry already, so I would go ahead and varnish it. I'm not going to actually do that, but I would brush it on the same way with the foam brush and apply another coat. And here's my ones that I have painted with the umber and varnished again. Now try this Payne's Gray one too. And this paper towel is probably still fine. I don't worry too much about any paint that's on the paper towel transferring to the other piece. It doesn't seem to happen that easily. So you can use these paper towels till they're almost falling apart, and they continue to work for this process. It's kind of impressive, really. But I am going to rinse my raw umber out of my brush. So what color should I try for this? Either of you have a request? I have most paint colors, I think. Right in front of me, I have the ones that I did for those snowflakes. I've got pink, light green, and periwinkle.
Pink.
Pink, okay. So this is just a pastel pink. And actually, I don't know that I even really need to squeeze any out because this doesn't take a lot, and don't need to worry about watering it down. So I'll just pick up a little bit. And this time I'm just going to brush over the letters because I really don't want this paint going down in there. If it gets down in there, I'm probably going to have to take a wet paper towel and try and get it out.
It's amazing how that paint goes over the varnish pretty well.
Yeah, it does. And then same thing, I'd wipe it off. If I wiped off too much, I'd add a little bit more back. And I think I want, see if I can just spread that out a little bit more. This is when I start using my fingers. Better control. It's pretty cute. You know, it has kind of a distressed look.
Yeah. Softness.
Mm-hmm. And then I would let that dry, and then I would varnish it a final time. Sometimes I'll put 2 or 3 coats of varnish on something if I really want it to look glazed. That looks pretty good. A little more on the back, just in case somebody looks at the back.
You know, all us crafters, we look at the back.
True. Okay. So let's try the, I'm curious about the purple on this Payne's gray one, although green would be really pretty too. Let's do that. Got too much water in my brush.
Now, what kind of paint is that? Is that a craft paint?
It is. It's a, yeah.
I like that green color.
It's called green tea, Americana green tea.
Ooh.
Makes me want a latte now, green tea latte. That's pretty. I don't know if you can see that.
Yeah,
very
that
well.
is beautiful.
Pretty combination with the Payne's gray. You can see it hardly takes any paint, really.
What if you decided to layer, like, let's say the pink, you didn't, like, the pink wasn't quite what you wanted, you can just layer another color, like a little.
Absolutely, yeah. In fact, I wanted to show you one I did last night that has like 3 or 4 colors on it. Let's see, what was it? Is it this one? I think it's this one. So this started out with the raw umber, and then I put red on it, and I didn't really like that. Then I put light blue on it. You can see some of it there.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't like that, so then I put yellow on it. So
Turned out very nice.
it just has a lot of depth, you know, with all the layers, like anything with a bunch of layers on it. Yeah. So that's painting. Do you want me to paint either one of these, any particular color?
Do you have a preference, Alexis?
The snowflake and that teal that's on her palette.
Oh, this? Okay.
Or I guess that's a green.
this is a blue. This is like this one.
Okay.
It's a teal.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can, seems
Good.
like the lighting in here is kind of weird, but yeah, it's a teal. And it was it was exactly like this. I'm trying to think what that was. Oh, I know. Hold on, let me grab it. I wanted a light blue, but I didn't actually have any. So I mixed some of this phthalo blue green shade with white. Man, this stuff goes a long way, let me tell you. I tried, you can see right here, last night I tried to just squeeze out a tiny bit, and even what I had there was way too much. It is so blue. And then of course I've got the cheaper grade white, so that meant I needed even more of it to get the light blue color. So just barely, see that?
Mm-hmm.
Barely need any of it. Like a pinprick would have been fine. That looks pretty good there. Okay. Oh yeah, that's pretty. And it's also pretty when I've got some little streaks of the darker blue in there. I don't know if you can see that, but that makes it even more interesting. Or if the paint wasn't quite blended. And I fuss with these, like I said, back and forth for quite a while sometimes. I could probably use a little bit more than that, but that's, you know, pretty. Oh, wow, there's some blue.
Yeah, I love that.
Mhm.
Phthalo blue is pretty intense, but boy, you can make beautiful purples with it.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'm curious about if I just put, and this white is so fluid. It's like a fluid acrylic. It's like some of that clay that I've got before that's a little bit too moist. It's so, that's pretty too.
Yeah, that is.
Nice highlight. It brings out.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yep. So then I would, as I said, varnish those again, you know, and then this would end up like this.
Okay.
I want to write down the name of that. What's the varnish name again? The actual
Here, it is.
high gloss, Liquitex. Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
What were you using to sand with?
So I get these sanding sponges at Ace Hardware.
Okay.
They come in 3 different grits. This is the finest one. But I've also just used regular sandpaper. Regular fine, but just you want the fine grit.
Okay.
Okay. Did you guys want to see anything else?
Can you do something like that? The pink, the love on that. That is just. I'm sorry, I picked the wrong color.
Should I put? I could try. Well, I could put some white over it.
Yeah.
Or you can suggest an entirely different color.
Or like a muted, like that umber or something. I'm wondering how that would work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Let's see what that looks like.
Page gray, something muted.
Antique it.
Yeah.
Right.
See what happens.
Especially, and if it's a little watery, then it won't cover it too much. Let's see.
Softening it. That's good. Yeah, just to kind of.
Mm-hmm.
That pink was. I like pink, but it's almost for these because of that more distressed look. It needs to have that.
I I wonder if how this would work.
Ooh. Is that like a burgundy?
My favorite colors.
What's that? Alizarin crimson. Yeah.
That
Now
is
we're talking.
pretty red. I think this with then maybe some white over it, back over it again.
Yeah, that'll look pretty.
Might be good.
Won't look so cotton candy.
Yeah.
It'll be a big girl pink instead of a little girl pink.
Right. And like we were saying before about the layers, I mean, the more layers you put on this, it really does just get more and more interesting. It will, if you use a lot of water, it will kind of start to soften the varnish a little bit, which will then, make it harder to continue rubbing stuff off. But like I could varnish this and then put some more paint on it too, if I wanted to keep going with the, just get barely some of that umber on there. Probably use my fingers. That's pretty good though. Yeah.
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 It's unanimous.
It's more mature. It's mature love.
Yeah. Yeah, that
Well,
looks good. I like that.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. That
Suggestion.
looks good with all the other ones too.
Mm-hmm. This is cool. I like this green with the blue. Fun. It's just
Very
so fun. And I think these are so fun to like tie onto presents, or I mean, obviously they've got lots of uses. Pendants, they could be a pendant. This would be a pretty pendant.
I just
Even
did this one. It's I just but my journal. I want to have a little piece to go on the cover. And it's
Cool.
Journal, and then the other little tags. Those were, what's interesting was I had not, the impression wasn't very deep in the journal.
Yeah.
I went back and I was able to take just a couple of letters that weren't strong enough, and I was able to gently go back in and hit those, deepen them a little bit.
And get in the same spot?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. That's fun.
Yeah, that is cool. Oh, and I was going to show these too. I did these just for Karen, my little garden markers.
Oh, nice.
So I used those, which ones did I use? I think I used this set. Yeah.
Oh,
because this rosemary, that was my longest word. You can see that's just like a monster of a tag compared to, the rest of them. So I did that one first just to kind of see the absolute longest that they'd be. And I just cut these out with the clay blade, and then this round part I just did by hand with the with this guy. I just eyeballed it, and then I added the little dots with the needle tool. This thing.
those
And
are
then
great.
when I painted these actually have, I think, like 3 colors on them too. So I've got this red that I did first, and then I did a pink. I don't think it was that pink though. I think it was a pink that was a little bit more of a salmony pink. And then I put yellow mixed with a little bit of white on the top. And I really like the way that they came out. They're very kind of vintage looking.
And they remind me is like a cookie, because I kind of want to eat it.
Yeah.
Like, ooh, those look edible.
And then I just used some baling wire to, I just made a loop at one end to hang them. I could have put like a jump ring on here first, but then, when they're in the ground or the dirt, then they're like hanging down even farther. So this, I kind of wanted them to be as, I don't know, close to the hook top of the hook as possible.
Very cool.
Thanks.
Very cool.
Nice.
Yeah.
They could make bookmarks too, where you have the ribbon inside the book and the tag hanging out. That would work.